everybody else. I am not just a feel-good candidate. I've been called that by a few people as I've walked neighborhoods because I am a big proponent of diversity and wanting to bring people together. But I also have a background in financial management. I worked for almost 10 years in the management industry, specifically with cash management. So I was actually responsible on any given day for liquidity and assets up to $1 billion. And you also had to understand that when you had to invest and uninvest, that every mistake, if you made one, cost money. Every decision you make costs money. And someone with that mindset also needs to have that. Thank you.
Yeah, the cookies are ready now. Yes, this is the sound that you all come to dread. Yes.
I'm Chris Clark. Thanks for coming tonight. I'll just share a little bit about why I'm running, since I only have 2 minutes, and then maybe we can get into some of the priorities. I think the reason I decided to get into the race this time around is because we have 4 of the 7 seats up for grabs. This is a really important election because you're choosing what the majority of your city council is going to look like for the next few years. And the reason I decided to run is because, especially because the general planning process is going on, we're going to decide what Mountain View is going to look like for the next 30 years. And I think one of the most important elements that you can have on a city council that's essentially the board of directors for the city is balance and diversity. And the reason that I decided to get in the race was because I didn't see anyone who represented that next generation of Mountain View residents who are here putting down roots, starting families, and we want to see, and I think those people need to have at least one person on city council. You don't want a council made of young people, but at least one person on city council who can look at what the city is going to look like for the next 30 years, what decisions we're going to make in terms of especially budgetary decisions in the next few years, and the ramifications of those from a longer term perspective as opposed to just a 2 to 4 year perspective. So that's primarily why I got in the race. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, a family farm. I moved out here to go to Stanford back in 2000. Just kind of, I didn't really identify very much with Palo Alto politics, and kind of took a liking to Mountain View. And that's kind of why I'm here today. I've kind of been waiting for that opportunity to say, you know, when can we finally get a fresher face on council? And like I said, you get a vote for 4, and I think you have a great group of very qualified candidates sitting up here before you to choose from. But I would just argue that you should use one of your 4 votes to vote for someone who has that next generational perspective of what Mountain View is going to look like 30 years from now, and to have that input on city council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Laura.
Thank you. Really, is Laura Mistigas, and why is she running again? I'm running for re-election to promote the strong financial stability that our modest little city has built up over 100 years of existence. I'm running to improve the quality of life for those who live, work, and play here. I'm running to guide the vision of our future. And about this time, the candidate starts to sound the same, but we're all different enough for one another, so that a vote for one person will direct the city in various directions. And I think you can tell something about me by looking at my city history. For example, I believed in parks and trails and recreation so much that I stayed on the Parks Commission for 7 years to ensure that parks, trails, and recreation strategies were in place. I introduced the concept of 3 acres per 1,000 persons for our parks plan for our city. The city uses that guideline today. Together with Councilmember Bryant, we reestablished Arbor Day through the Forestry Department, and now our city has its very own Mountain View Trees nonprofit. My first year on council, I was the only woman with 6. So year after year, I've introduced some goals that are finally now being worked on by council and staff. I proposed a rewrite of the general plan. At first, I was told that even though the general plan was based in 1992, it did need to be done again, but I disagreed. Well, the rewrite is now in place, and we're working on the visioning process. I proposed a new process for reviewing the city budget and council goals. And working with my fellow council members, we continue to work closely on this process to expedite and clarify multiple funds, expenses, and revenue assumptions. I proposed a municipal revenue generation plan. It's kind of a mouthful. And this is a plan to assist our long-term planning so we know where our revenues are coming from. And this process is now in place as of this year. As mayor last year, I proposed and signed the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, which was the starter for the city's Environmental Sustainability Task Force. And Biotech Forum last year with Benham West as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. John. Sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm John. I've lived in Mountain View since 1975. Worked in the aerospace industry for 30 years and spent the entire time right here in Mountain View. I'm currently chair of the Environmental Planning Commission. Before that, I served 5 years on the Parks and Recreation Commission and have been pretty active in the habitat side of the community for some time. In the last 2 years, I've attempted to broaden my policy experience to understand Mountain View's future in terms of what we're facing with population growth, limited resources such as land and water. So I've tried to get broader policy experience in the areas of housing, commercial development, environmental quality, and transportation as well. I'm running to be on your city council to keep what we have in our city when we're facing, even in times before this month, some fiscal challenges in the area of keeping the budget balanced. Revenue expenditure, we're starting to converge again. And now there's even more uncertainty than that. And I want to keep the quality services that we have without raising taxes. The way you do that is through economic growth and development. That is attracting corporate or other retail to the community along 101, other areas appropriate in the community to keep that revenue base intact. So I'm asking for your support, your vote. I've talked to many of you at your doors in Mountain View. You've seen my flyer. And please vote for me on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, and good evening, Old Mountain View. It's great to be here, and thank you for hosting this. I've lived in Mountain View for over 31 years now, and I can remember, not quite as long as John, but I can remember when Mountain View was the place between Palo Alto and Sunnyvale. Now it is a destination that people are proud to come to. Many of you probably know I've served on the council before. I served 8 years, and during that period of time, I really got a feel for what the issues are in Mountain View and what the real opportunities are for the city as we move forward. And I think bringing my experience, the relationships that I've developed over the years with people in the community, in the region, and in the state can only enhance the future of Mountain View. My 3 highest priorities as we go forward are, first is to really address the issues of affordable housing. And I don't mean housing that's more affordable than Palo Alto, but housing that regular people can live in, people like store clerks, auto mechanics, bus drivers, real working people. Mountain View loves its diversity, and we're really at risk of losing that diversity if we don't figure out how to solve the issues of affordable housing. My second highest priority has to do with the fiscal stability of the city. I'm the only candidate, and actually the only member of, including the people that are currently on the council, that has done municipal budgets during a recession. I was on the council in the last recession, and I think getting into the budget cycle is an arduous process, and I bring the skill of having done that in the past and have had experience of balancing budgets during dire economic times. And my third highest priority is to we need a new community park over in the Wisman area, and that is along with enhancing continuing Stevens Creek Trail and moving forward with Questle Park Annex.
Great, thank you. Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Ames, current mayor of Mountain View, and I'm also finishing up my first term as a council member and looking to run for a second term. And I guess, as you see here, all of us offer different things to the city, and I wanted to emphasize some of mine. I served on Parks and Rec for 6 years before I decided to run for council, and so I think the perspective that I bring, one, long-time resident,